What's up? Question mark. How are things in England? Fine. So that's that one.
This is great.
Okay, right. So if I just read them out and then give my answer. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. And I'll just sit here and watch.
Okay. Are you working on any new material for you or mother tongue? A sacred mother tongue? Oh, you must have been in a rush or something. The trouble is, with where I live and with my band and and all the rest of it, everything's done on the fly. I never get a chance to really experiment with amps and sounds. It kind of has to be instant or it's out. And that's why I've been using Line 6 for so many years. The fucking Line 6 valve is like easily the biggest, the punchiest, the fucking cleanest amp for what I've been doing, that I haven't needed to use anything else for the last 4 years. The more I think about it, I mean, like the LANEY guys, they're great, and there's a lot of potential to kind of really explore what the amp is capable of, and it's fairly new. Like it's not really been out that long, so far the kind of forums I have used it in properly, not rehearsals or anything like that. But I mean, obviously a 60-watt head in a metal band is just never going to work anyway. I mean, that's just on paper. You would even know that before even hearing anything. So I think I need to maybe explore a few different amps. But I mean, you heard the gear I was using in Frankfurt. Not Frankfurt, Amsterdam. That was Marcel's rig, and that was a VH100, and that's great. I mean, the only thing I will say is I'm slightly concerned that I'm going to get lumped into maybe using one amp when I've already got several of theirs that I would like to probably use more, if I'm honest. I mean, the VH100 is probably the best amp I've ever heard LANEY do, and I would personally really like to explore, the possibilities of using that on a permanent basis, and the GH100 as well.
And if they do what you want, and I mean, I know personally, I think that they do, despite it not being a full tube amplifier, and I don't give a shit what anybody says. The proof is in the pudding. It tracks well. You can get all kinds of sounds out of it for live purposes, and it's definitely loud enough. And the beauty about having a transistor section in an amplifier for metal is the cutting feature of it. I mean,
it is.
It's not the rhythms in metal are, like you were saying before, are not super tone based. You need a cutting sound for that, Yeah,
you do, but that's it's kind of hard to find. I mean, with all these amps on the face of the earth, very few of them track well. I think that's why people still go back to using 5150s for metal, because live. I'm not really going to go into too much what I think about the live tone of the P150, but just to say it's a little bit boxy and it doesn't really kind of cut. Not for me, it's not really great. And it's noisy as fuck, you've got loads of clips and, the kind of on stage, it's like, fuck, what does that need to be that loud? Because with other amps, it's not, So there's a few reasons why I don't use my 5150 anymore. Recently, I found out that company Amp Tweaker, right, which is James Brown, who's involved in the design of the 5150, from I think the preamp and the sound and everything. And he's basically put that into a pedal. Fuck, I mean, I did some rehearsals, because I mean, the LANEY thing, it sounded great, but it just wasn't. It wasn't cutting enough for me to feel comfortable not using the Line 6. But what I did do was use the Line 6 head, but take the preamp section away. So I just plugged into the effects return. I used the power. I did this with the LANEY as well, but I think the LANEY has got too many global master controls. Whereas the Line 6, the only control that the power amp has got is the volume and the presence. I think with the LANEY there was the dynamics, there was a load of other things that were affecting the tone slightly. So even though it sounded brutal, it kind of wasn't right. But yeah, with this pedal you need like a flat response power amp, nothing that colours the sound or anything. So we plugged it into the Line 6 effects return. Fucking hell, it's every benefit of using a 5150 without all the shit that goes with it. The weight of the thing, the hiss, the fact that the more you turn the gain up, the on-board gate it's got cuts in more and more, so you can have a bit more playability without having that sort of, every time you stop playing, you end up with that kind of sound, because that's fucking the most annoying thing in the world. You want to play with gain and playability, but you just don't want that sound. I mean, a lot of that has to do with sheer volume on stage. You know what I mean? Because it's the volume going through the pickups, isn't it? Kind of cycling. But yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous how good it sounds. It's tight. It's got the perfect tone that I like for doing that kind of music. And do you know what I'm really tempted to do? I mean, kind of working with big companies aside and global promotion and all the rest of it, I still, in the back of my mind, are very much, I wouldn't ever want to use anything that I don't use for the sake of being a poster boy for something, I'm really considering just kind of using this amp tweaker pedal with a power amp and that be my rig, I mean, the reason why that's come up is because I'm touring China and I don't want to rely on backline where I just turn up and it's like a Marshall or something and I think, oh, this isn't going to work. Like, that'd be my worst nightmare because there's nothing that they do in their range that would ever suit me, I always end up going back to that amp. It's whatever it is, it's the Mark 1 valve Bogner, and it's just the kill switch engage rhythm setting and then the other kill switch engage setting I use. In fact, they're all kill switch engage settings. The clean, the lead, and the rhythm, but fuck, it's the best of everything you want to hear in a metal tone and none of the downsides. It's fucking ridiculous, And it's funny, the reactions I get when people see me turn up with that amp before and after is quite something, actually. Because you turn up and you do these, you turn up and you go, what the fuck are you using that for? Because people expect you to turn up with like an Engel or fucking, some overpriced fucking thing that must sound good. You spent 3,000 quid on it. Yeah, it's the same with the guitar. This guitar, right? I mean, I paid 400 quid for that. It's my main guitar, and the signature's going to be based on that. I think I came at the right time for them because I think they were looking at doing more demos and getting somebody to do that. And I don't know. I just sort of came along at the right time really for working with them. And I've got a really good relationship with them. I get on with all the guys great. We have a good laugh. We go out and piss together. It's always a good crack when we're hanging out. And that's what I like. It's kind of like a sort of family vibe. It's really good. And
they're really good. They're good guitars, man. And the beauty with a company like that is whether it's ESP or LTD, the fact is those guitars are all made in the same place. So I mean, the selection of woods might be different, but at the end of the day, most of the hardware, and for you're using EMG pickups, so it's all set up, man. It's all set up. So there's no reason why a $400 or $500 guitar can't feel as good and sound as good as one of the ones that they would sell in the $2,000 mark,
Yeah. I mean, I did at Frankfurt. I did a thing with Alan Stilgrave, the A&R guy, and he was doing some videos, just going through some of the new line, and he just said, "Look, you just play a few guitars, to camera, so we can just hear the difference between them." And every one I picked up, they were completely different models, and they all played like ridiculous. They were just great, off the shelf, off the thing. They unclipped them, just gave them to me, and went, "Just play something," and I did. Yeah. And it's always really hard for me because I'm quite fussy really when it comes to guitars and setups and things. I'm not generally the sort of guy that turns up and plays anything. But with ESP and LCD, I don't really worry about that. Just everything feels right for me for some reason, and that's why I don't really think I'll be moving on anytime soon.
No, it's good, and what's cool is you've developed a good relationship with them, man, and they'll probably stick with it.
Yeah. I mean, they're really they seem to love what I do, and they're really almost like they seem proud to have me part of their team. Kind of doing these things and all the rest of it, and in turn, I kind of feel proud to be playing the guitars. But what I was saying to you is, with the amp tweaker pedal, I've spoken to James a bunch of times, even today actually, about some new ideas for the pedal. Just adding bits on. And it's funny because all the bits that I suggested, he said, "Yeah, well, I'm already working on something that's doing exactly what you want." And do you know what the good thing about him is? He understands what guitar players actually want. And it's funny because when you actually play all these guitar amps and stuff, I can pick holes in every one of them. to go, well, that's not very practical. Why have they done this? You know, this doesn't sound like it should. You know, if it sounded like this, more people will be into it. You know, and I have that with every single amp that I plug into. You know, and it's normally problems with not enough gain. The low end's not right. It's not EQ'd right, so it flabs. It doesn't punch. You know, the kind of the EQ either doesn't work or it works too well. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things that just kind of make amps one of the hardest things to find a tone that you're happy with. I mean, fucking hell, you see all these gear people on the net all the time going, oh, you know, I've got this tone, this is great, you know, I had to spend fucking hours on end. You know, I don't know whether I'm speaking for the few or the many, but I don't want to be sitting there fucking hours on end with manuals looking through shit. I want to be able to plug in and go, right, yeah, that's great, that fucking works, that's good, it sounds great, you know. And there's simple things like I said, having the right low end, you know, not too boomy, not too fucking toppy, you know, the mid-range has got to be quite smooth. The top end's got to give it clarity, but not that fucking fizz that is often associated with so many different amps. You know, and the gain, it's always the gain. Why don't they just literally make 10 fucking ridiculous so you only have to have the amp on 3? Why make 10 a struggle? I don't really understand. Like, you know, maybe I'm not playing the right amps, but everything I plugged into, all bar maybe an Engel, really suffers on the gain front. Like,
it's a noise floor issue.
Yeah, but why can't they build in gates? I mean, fucking hell, all they'd have to do is strip the circuitry out of an NS2 and put it in a head. Why don't they do that? You know?
Yeah, it's funny. For them, like it's obviously the additional circuitry and the possibilities of change to tone. But like you said, the NS2, well, I guess the NS2 and the NF1 change zero tone. Zero.
Yeah.
Doesn't change anything. But I don't know why, man. I agree with you. It's stupid. Like they've got these brilliant rocket scientist guys building these things that they put stuff on it that really none of us need, you know?
Yeah.
And they avoid what is actually required, like you were saying. So
the slightly annoying for like metal as well is like, you know, the holy grail of a metal tone seems to be amp head with fairly good EQ. But to sort the low end out, you need a tube screamer. Why? Just fucking EQ the low end right. Don't, you know, why do you need to get another pedal to make that bite a bit more? You know, why don't you just EQ it to fucking do that? And that's what this amp tweaker guy's done, you know. He's made the pedal feel like it's already tube screamed up, you know. And it's great. You don't even need a tube screamer. You don't need anything to make it tight. It's fucking already there. It's instant.
So I take it you got one, right?
Yeah, I got one. I used it for the rehearsals for my band last couple of days.
Okay.
Fucking, I mean, our sound engineer, and he's a right cunt to get to kind of, you know, I mean, he's hard to please because he knows his shit, you know, he knows what sounds good, and, you know, and it's funny, you know, we plugged this thing in and it was like, it was just right, you know, it was, everything just sounded killer.
Now tell me something, if you're going to use the amp tweaker thing, what are you going to do about your delays and that stuff? Like, would you put it in between the tweaker and the power amp section on the line 6?
Yeah. You put it, everything's on the floor, which is the other added benefit of having your preamp on the floor instead of in the amp, right? You don't have to have your effects return and send, and then have your guitar going into the front end. You can literally guitar on the floor. I mean, this is how I set it up the other night. I had guitar into my NS2, into the amp tweaker, out of that into a line selector, into the power amp. And then the delay is through the loop of the line selector, because when you hit that, you leave your delay on all the time, right? You hit the line selector, it's got a dB thing on it.
Yeah.
So because it's on the floor and it's in the loop, the dB pushes the level up. But in turn, turning that on also turns your delay on as well, so that's your instant thing. Now that just works fucking perfectly. And then when you turn the pedal off, it just bypasses it completely, and you can have your delay on or off if you want. Or the thing is, the pedal's got a loop on it. So you can set up another delay in chorus. When you turn the pedal off, it engages that loop, so your chorus and delay will come on for your clean channel. So it's like having a 3-channel head on the floor. And it's got an inbuilt gate as well, so you can crank the gain up, and you know, with amps you normally have loads of hiss and all that. None, really. I mean, a reasonable amount that you would expect to get from gain or whatever. Because it's got the gate, you turn it on, and as I say, the more you turn the distortion up or the gain up, the harder the gate kicks in. It doesn't kick your tone; you still get sustain and everything. There's a knob, there's a tone sweep knob on there, so you can have you know, a dull tone or a really bright tone. There's a tight knob on there as well, so you can affect the tightness of the pick attack. So you can have it really floppy if you want, but you can turn the knob and it gets tighter.
So he built in an oral exciter kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of. You know, but he literally has just thought of practical, on the road, this is what a guitar player would need. Not a fucking Axe Effects with like... See, the trouble is with Axe Effects for me, is it sounds amazing, right? It's brilliant. But there's 99.9 things on it I would never use to get that one tone that I'd be paying $3,000 for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas this pedal does the one thing really well, and he does like rock ones and blues ones as well, but this metal one, if you want a good metal sound, you'll be able to get it out of that. And if you can't, then, I don't know.
You can't play.
Yeah, exactly, you know.
But I understand for you it's not really a concern, but any of these pedals, like if you're going into the power amp return of any of these amps, how does it address your clean tone, an actual clean tone?
Well, that's the thing. It kind of doesn't. But the clean is actually pretty good because it's true bypass. So you know, and you just end up kind of using the whatever the sound that the tubes give you if you plug straight in. You know, so it'd be like plugging into a clean amp. You know, because that's all they do really. Apart from, you know, just put a few EQ options in the front end, but it's still using the power amp to project that clean tone.
I think it would probably be an interesting project for him to look at incorporating into the off position of this particular pedal.
Yeah,
you know?
But all I will say is when you turn the pedal off, what's to say that you can't put a Fender Twin clean head through that loop and then have it set up for a different rig if you wanted? You know,
that doesn't help you with the transportability of your rig, because what you're telling me now is it's great for you, for a guy like you that has to go to Frankfurt, has to go to Amsterdam, has to go to Germany. You're carrying a pedal train that weighs 10 pounds that you can carry on the plane with your guitar, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And have no worries.
Well, I'll tell you what you could do is when you turn the pedal off, you can have a clean signal. You could have a delay, a chorus, and then you can have an EQ pedal if you wanted. So using the clean signal going to the power amp, it might sound a bit dull, but if you want to EQ it, you can with like an EQ pedal. You know, it's a simple fix. If you wanted to do that.
Has he asked you to do a demo?
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I've got no real way of kind of filming any of this stuff, and, you know, because I'm not really technically minded like that. I could probably get someone to do it. I did tell him that the Frankfurt performances, they was all using amp speaker. I mean, it was Black Star head, but I didn't use any of the EQ for the Black Star. I just used the power amp section.